Welcome to Lesson 2. In the first segment, we're going to talk about what jihad is, and in the next segment, we're going to talk about what jihad is not. But before we do, let's go back and just review quickly what we learned in Lesson 1. In Lesson 1, we learned that Abraham is the father, basically, of all three of the major religions, of Judaism, of Christianity, and of Islam. We also learned that all three of those major religions also have and share some of the same prophets from Abraham clear up to David and up to Jesus himself. We also learnt some of the differences and some of the similarities of the Bible and the Quran. So these are things that we can put in as our basics. All right, let's get started with Lesson 2. In Segment 1, we are going to talk about jihad. Jihad is not a scary word. Unfortunately, with the Western media, we've heard jihad, and whenever we do, our minds go to some guy, or now they're using some children to strap bombs to themselves and just blowing people up. But I want to just tell you that jihad, its original meaning, is not holy war. If you take it back to its essence, the original meaning of jihad means to struggle or to strive. Now that struggling and that striving can be taken either internally or externally. Sometimes a struggle in between nations or in between families. It's called a jihad, where we struggle to find common ground or struggle to maintain our customs. That could be legal struggles, it could be diplomatic struggles, it could be also economical struggles, political struggles. But in the Quran, the military struggle is always as a last resort. The use of force has been taken and twisted out of the Quran and has been fed back to Muslims in a way that is not correct. If you talk to any imam and ask them, one that's not a radical imam, and ask them what is the meaning of jihad, they will tell you that it is a struggle. It is something that we have to strive for, inner peace, outer peace, and there are many, many avenues to do it. But there are people out there, as in all religions, who will twist the scriptures use it for their personal gain, and for their personal, sometimes financial or military gain, or land, or just for domination. In the Quran, it does allow for a military struggle if there is no alternate way out of it. If you've tried legal means, economic means, political means, diplomatic means, if you've tried all that and there is still a struggle and it will not sort itself out, then in the Quran it does give a way to use military force. However, that must be given by the council, by the Islamic Council, and it must be agreed on pretty much 100%. It is not given by people who are not on the Islamic Council. So when you hear people say, hey, let's go out there and take these people, it's a holy jihad, they're twisting the Quran for their own purposes. And if there is going to be a holy war, there are very strict rules of engagement according to the Quran, and that is that no women, no children, and no invalids are to be harmed. That is, in the Quran, several times it is mentioned, and rather mentioned strongly. But just like people who twist things in the Bible and twist things in the Torah to their own gain, that is left out, and not the full story is given to the masses. Also, in the jihad in the Quran, the jihad is not allowed to be used to coerce or to attack people of other religions. In fact, in the Quran, the Christians and the Jews are called people of the book, and they are to be protected and respected. And again, that is mentioned several times in the Quran. These are not things that the extremists like to tell their followers, because if they did, then their followers who do have a heart for God, but their mind has been twisted. These are things that are not told them. But if you do speak to a Muslim and the subject of jihad does come up, you can mention these things in the Quran. And at the end of all the lessons, there will be a bibliography and where you can find these scriptures in the Quran and corresponding scriptures in the Bible. Again, I come to the majority of Muslims do not believe that jihad means an external struggle against other people of free lands. They do believe that if any of those struggles come upon their own people or upon their own land, that they are entitled to fight for their religious rights and freedom, as does the Western world. If a nation was to come to America and try to impose its laws and its rules here, whether they be religious or political, America would fight for every ounce of blood and for every inch of soil. And that is the same. That is allowed in the Quran. But again, I go back to that is a final resort. There are other means to bring that about. But usually in the Quran, when it talks about a jihad, it is about an internal struggle. It is about the struggle of mankind wanting to sin, and then God trying to tell us not to sin. And there was one place in the Quran where Muhammad, excuse me, after winning a minor battle, came back and he said to his men, now jihad starts, the internal jihad starts. That is so that the men don't take the bloodlust from the battle and then place it out. It is a struggle inside to keep that from affecting the rest of the village and or the country. So hopefully I have dispelled some of those fears of what jihad is. Remember, this is something that you've got to follow through on yourself. There are many resources on the internet in your local library that will explain these things to you. And don't just read the Western point of view of what jihad is. I highly recommend that you read some of the Middle Eastern points of view so that you're not getting a skewed view of this thing. The problem with the Western media is they have to sell advertising space, and so to get you to watch their news, they will put some pretty sensationalized things on there, and the news and the newspapers and on the internet. So be careful what you hear, be careful what you read. Just take it all to God, ask Him to give you an understanding, and it will come to pass. Look forward to seeing you in section 2.